Good afternoon, parents, family, community members. Glad you're here today. Just a couple of housekeeping items. We'll start right at 1 o'clock. But first, I just want to say thank you and welcome. There is opportunities for you to provide feedback in the chat box. If you're finding that your chat box is not working, please take a look at the link below if you scroll down just a little bit, if you're not on your full screen, and you can click on that and provide feedback as well. Just going to pause for a minute here until we get everybody organized, and we'll be right with you. Okay, welcome again. Thank you so much for taking some time out of your day to learn a little bit about our back to school plans. My goal today is to share some of the information that we have regarding um, where we are today, our back to school plans, some of the data we're looking at, and explain a couple of the models. Our goal is to give you an overview picture, not give really specifics, but if there are questions you have, what we do is we have a couple of moderators who are taking all the chats down. We'll organize those in question and answer areas and create a document that we'll put online for all to be able to see. Our goal is to take feedback. We have another presentation tonight at 6 o'clock. It'll be the same presentation. You're surely welcome to join the 6 o'clock presentation as well. We'll use that information again, come back together, and we'll kind of go through the timeline in our presentation today. But we've got a board meeting next Tuesday, and our goal is to be able to provide the board some of that feedback and be able to communicate a final decision with you next week. So with that, I just want to share with you my screen, and then I'm going to go through the presentation. Throughout the presentation, I'll take a couple pauses here and there. That pause will be able to give us an opportunity for you to write some things in the chat box and just kind of organize your thoughts. Sometimes when you're listening to the presentation, I might get ahead of myself and present questions for you. So with that, I want to make sure that you have times to do that. So we'll do 3 different stops for about a minute just to give you a chance to organize, and then we'll keep going through. The presentation's been taking about a half an hour to 40 minutes, depending on questions. So I will share my screen with you and happy to show the presentation. Okay, so our goal today is to talk a little bit about our collective commitments, the journey in our current state, the blended learning options, our virtual learning options, a little bit about social, emotional health and wellness, share our safety protocols, and then talk about our next steps. When we look at collective commitments, what we did is we identified areas of which we were committed to looking at or looking through lenses, specifically as we created our return to school plan. And what we found were there were 5 areas that we wanted to make sure we made commitments under: people, equity, our focus on learning, our data-driven decisions, and collaboration. So I'll quickly give you a brief overview of those so you can kind of get an understanding of where we're coming from. And again, when we talk about people, obviously, children are the reason we're here, and we're committed to the safety and well-being of our students, staff, and larger community. We want to provide our students with a safe, welcoming learning environment. We understand the challenges involved in return to school, and we want to provide options for our students' families to be in a safe and compassionate, purposeful manner. Again, we know that our plan needs to be flexible due to the changing health environment, but we want to make sure that we're focusing on our people first. We also know that we need to commit to equity for all. We know that we want to provide the necessary educational resources for all of our students and staff to feel welcome and accepted in their school and be successful regardless of their background and personal circumstances. We're aware that some students might need additional supports, and we're committed to meeting the needs. We want to meet kids where they are and move them forward with no exceptions. We talk about the focus on learning. Obviously, that's our job, is to provide instructional support for our students. We are committed to focusing on an academic and socio-emotional learning while providing the supports that all learners need. We'll use standards-based learning targets and provide regular feedback. We're committed to utilizing multiple data sets to drive our decisions, whether we're talking about instructional models, operational practices, healthy safety protocols. These data sets will help us support, and they have been, our short and long-term goals for both our students and staff, and we need to do that in a fiscally responsible manner. Finally, collaboration. Again, we're committed to regularly communicating with our stakeholders, asking for feedback. I had 2 sessions yesterday with staff. I'll have 2 sessions with community today. We talked with our local health professionals. I had a meeting this morning with our county health nurses. We want to be able to provide information to our Board of Education. We'll look at our goals. We'll look at that and provide adapting and implementing an educational model that best serves learning environment and that's safe and welcoming. So to kind of wrap up where we are today, obviously back in March, COVID-19 and the state made a rule to close schools, and we're concerned about the pandemic remaining in a local sense on the rise. Back in June, we were seeing very few cases, and today and this week, this month, we're seeing a continued increase. We do want to stay up with the guidance from the CDC, DPI, DHS, local health officials. They continually give us information about their recommendations on returning to school. We're taking the feedback from our staff, our students, in a distance learning model. They gave us some feedback about how we were doing in June. We did a return to the school, people's comfort level. We'll share some of that data in July. We created a timeline for developing this return to school model. We're on that timeline today. We articulated that we wanted to get some parent feedback, and Tuesday we're looking for board approval. Just to kind of give you an overview of our survey results, these were the surveys that we asked our parents and our staff to complete regarding their comfort level of returning to school. Our families said 57% were very comfortable or comfortable in a face-to-face model. 17% said they would not send their children back in any face-to-face instructional model. Our staff top comfort level was face-to-face in a blended distance model. That's 39.2% were very comfortable or comfortable. One of the things that we do know is by far our family's top priorities were academic progress of their children and student and staff safety. The staff's top concerns are compliance with health safety protocols, the unknown factors regarding their job and what does it look like in a COVID-19 era, and just what we were going to do as a district for cleaning and disinfecting practice. So those were our results specifically from our surveys. Those are available on our website if you want to click on those. You can review all the data, both staff and parents. One of the things that we're really following when we're talking about our return to school is our regional health data. The state of Wisconsin's health department puts out an activity level, which is put out by county. The activity level basically talks a little bit about how much risk is in each area, and these areas now are counties. So right now, Manitowoc is in the high level. There are 3 levels, high, medium, and low. Manitowoc County is in the high level. Another data point that they put out is access to health care. And again, that's done by region. So we are in the Northeast region. And access to health care is how much PDP is available, what kind of hospital beds are available, and if you are sick, can you get care? The other piece that we're looking at is our ability to contact trace. So contact trace means that if an adult or a child is tested positive or is symptom and gets tested, our ability to go back and communicate to the health department and to the families, the individuals that that person was in contact with. The big key with the contact tracing is obviously the 6-foot distancing and or touch. So when we're looking at have you been exposed, right now our professional health educators are talking about if you've had physical contact, you've been exposed. If you've been within 6 feet for 15 minutes, you've been exposed. So again, our goal is to try to create learning spaces if we're coming back in a face-to-face model that meets those criteria. The last would be ability to quarantine, and quarantine obviously means that if there's an individual or individuals, whether it's adult or child, who test positive, that we are going to remove them from the school environment so that they cannot bring other folks back. So obviously the goal here and probably the challenge is balancing the public health, public education, working parents, childcare, social emotional well-being. So I'm going to take a break right here and give people an opportunity to write some questions if they have not done so. I'll just take I would say about a 1-minute break and allow you to put some information in, then we'll go next to where we are and some of the details behind our decision making. Okay, thanks again for your time and patience. Again, chat box is available if you want to put some questions. If you're having a hard time or you want to use a different avenue, as you scroll down to the bottom of your screen, you'll see a link. You can click on that and that will be shared with our district. We have folks who are working on taking those comments and collecting those. Just for your information, as you share those comments, I'm not able to see the comments as I'm presenting, but I will review those and we'll organize those and take those as we continue to build our plan and make recommendations. So where are we now? As we've developed our plans and looked at all kinds of information, we've decided that we're not able to start the year with a 100% face-to-face model and meet those guidelines that we talked before with the social distancing and contact tracing and ability to quarantine. What we're going to do right now is investigate 2 models of full distance learning and blended learning. Blended is offered. Families would have the ability to do full distance, but right now we're looking at 2 potential models. Again, I would articulate to you that our interest is as soon as we can is to move back into a face-to-face traditional model. We do know that that model meets our academic and social emotional expectations in the best possible way. But we also have to keep into consideration some of the concerns that we have specifically for the ability to social distance, the ability to quarantine, and the ability to contact trace, and our current health status as Manitowoc County. We do need some additional time. I've got a few other information. We continue to hear from the state that they're going to give us another data point research model that will come out this week. We're hoping for that as there's only one more day of the week, but we're working hard with our local health officials and our state health officials to get those data points that we can share. What I am going to do is share with you what a full distance model might look like and what are blended models. So you're familiar a little bit with the full distance model. If you've been in our district last year, we have our MPSD certified teachers will be working in a Google Classroom in grades 1 through 12. And Class Dojo in 4K and kindergarten. Again, just to reiterate, we have 2 options. This could be one of them. Committed right now to providing engaging, relevant distance learning. There will be changes to student attendance and our grading compared to the distance learning in 2020 in March, April, May, and June. We absolutely would have organized situations where students and staff are on a regular basis meeting and communicating. We know that for some of our students, this isn't an ideal model, but again, we're trying to do everything we can to make sure that we keep the safety and well-being of our students, staff, and greater community at large. So we want to make sure that we're prepared. There are cases as well that the state or the county will come in and tell us that we have to shift and we have to be prepared in case of that. So all of our plans have to be nimble. And what I mean by that is if we say we're going to go in a blended model, or we say we're going to go face-to-face, and the state comes back and says, nope, you're going to do this, we have to be prepared for that. We saw that in March. We will fully be prepared for a full distance model if that's the direction we need to go. Blended model is a little bit different, and so we're going to spend a little bit more time explaining what a blended model might look like, specifically because you're comfortable, or at least aware, I don't know if comfortable is the right word, aware of what a face-to-face school model looks like. You've got some experience on what a 100% virtual model look like, so we're going to spend a little bit more time explaining what blended learning options look like. In our current 4K model, if you have a 4K student or your son or daughter has gone in a 4K model, there's half days, 4 days per week. Our blended model would provide half days, 2 days per week. And what you'll see regularly with the blended model is we want to try to reduce our class sizes. So basically we've cut them in half. And that's what will happen here. We'll cut the student population in half, be able to spread our students out in a distance learning protocol, and then be able to support the learning 2 days a week, and then a traditional virtual model the other 2 days a week. And Fridays, currently our teachers have professional development and additional supports that would continue in our 4K model. If we used a blended model for our elementary, basically that means that we're going to be in school part of the day, and then part of the day will be virtual. The AM and PM cohorts, similar to what we saw in 4K, would happen in our elementary school. The class size numbers would be 7 to 13, and they would be in half days. The reason we have 7 to 13 is we take the current class sizes and we split them in half. Half the class goes in the morning, the other half goes in the afternoon. The examples of times might be 8 to 11:30 or 12:30 till 4. Those would be 4 days a week: Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Friday would be distance learning to practice math and ELA skills, engage in social studies and science experiences, and teacher collaboration time, and additional deep cleaning and sanitizing of our buildings. When we do this model and provide virtual learning, we do need to provide our teachers with some opportunities to practice and support students while they're out. And so we'll need to bring our teachers together on a day where students aren't present to do that. The face-to-face time will focus on English language arts, math, social emotional learning. And they will also have an art, music, and Phy-Ed. We'll add a counseling library on that rotating schedule, so we have a 4 rotation. And what that will look like in general is that students in their cohorts will stay in their class with their certified teachers, and the art, music teachers will be, and counselors will be going into the class. We will use outside learning spaces for physical education as often as we can. It's much easier to do in September than it is in obviously October, November, but we're going to use that time. We do know that social distancing and spacing outside will help our kids, and we want to make sure that they have some opportunities to exercise and participate in physical education. Our middle school blended model has full days, and they're going to be grade level cohorts, 10 to 12 students per classroom. Again, what we're trying to do in middle school is cut the school into thirds. And so what the model has prepared is 1 day for 6th grade, 1 day for 7th grade, 1 day for 8th grade, and then distance learning when those days are not face-to-face. What you'll see happening in this model is that the kids will come for 1 full day, and the teachers will move to the classrooms supporting the student learning. We will have activities that will be scheduled, electives at the beginning and the end of the day. There will be 3 elective periods that students could choose from. Electives being art, music, family consumer read, foreign language, all those type of courses. And they'll be able to select those either at the beginning of the day, end of the day, or one in the middle. What we also see in the elementary is that students would be eating lunch in their classroom, so we'll bring lunch to them. The whole idea is to mitigate the student movement within the building. So if we did have to contact trace, we did have an adult or a child who was tested positive, we would be able to quarantine a small group of folks as opposed to quarantining a larger group or a grade or even possibly a school. When we think about Washington, Washington has a few more students, so they have 24 core teachers. Wilson has 20 core teachers. Those core teachers make 6 house teams and 5 house teams. So basically you're seeing 6 times 4 and 5 times 4. There are 30 to 40 students in each grade level. And then each house will be divided evenly by those 4 core teachers. So if you divide 4 by those 30 to 40, that's how we get our small class sizes. The teachers would be the one to move to another room with another group of students in the same house, keeping that contact tracing individual. And 2 teachers for each grade level will plan that face-to-face and distance learning for each core subject. All teachers for each core subject teach the lesson they taught. So there'll be a math lesson, science lesson, social studies, and language arts, and those teachers will support that learning in their academic genre, whatever they're teaching. If they're a math teacher, they'll support the learning in math. If they're science, support learning in science. Again, this model is supporting 6th graders on one day, 7th graders on another day, 8th graders on another day. The teachers are there all the days, providing supports for students when they're there and providing virtual learning when they're not there, connecting with kids. The high school model, again, rather than cutting up in thirds like we did or halves, this is cutting up in quarters. We're taking approximately 375 students in the building at once and creating cohort groups. Those 375 students are not grade level, so it won't be like just freshman or just sophomore, because we do know at the secondary level those kids mix. And each cohort will attend 2 days per week. Those are 2 half-day sessions in the morning or in the afternoon. So it'll be Monday, Wednesday, or a Tuesday, Thursday. Friday will be distance learning for students and teacher collaboration, providing time to also support students virtually and deep clean and sanitize. You'll hear that quite often. Cohorts are organized into grade level houses of 20 to 24 students with 4 grade level teachers. So we're going to have cohort groups and house groups. So the cohort groups are everybody who's going to school at that same time, the 375. The house groups are your grade level, so a 9th grade, a 10th grade, 11th grade, 12th grade, 20 to 24 of those students. And there'll be 4 grade level teachers assigned to each one of those house groups. And what I mean by that is there will be a math, science, social studies, and language arts assigned to those 20 to 24. So you split them into 2 and you get 10 to 12 students. That's what we're trying to manage for a number of different purposes. A, for smaller instructional practices, and B, for contact tracing, trying to keep the adults with the kids and the students from moving as little as possible. Again, that face-to-face time will be focused on connecting, supporting distance learning needs, interventions, and enrichments. So what will happen is if I am, let's say, a geometry teacher at Lincoln High School, I might be supporting my class, and because I have sophomores, let's say, that's a geometry level, I might have some who are still in algebra, but I might also have some who are in algebra 2 who are in my group, my house. I'm going to support the learning because on Fridays, and the teachers have supported that it is in their academic classroom. So as a classroom teacher, I still have 5 classes of geometry students, but I also can support the algebra student and the algebra 2 student who happens to be in my class. You might not be in my class, you might be. So there is some logistics to when we're doing secondary level with what courses they teach and what their certification are. So we really want to make sure we're keeping teachers in the areas where they have the expertise. Again, we will have our teachers work to facilitate a 100% distance learning model in a Google Classroom. One of the things that we're committed to is making sure that on every week, whether that's Sunday or Monday, we send out a 1-week, 1-page document that articulates for each core content area what the expectations would be, what the learning targets are what the assignments will be, and what the assessments, if there's going to be some, will be. Students will have opportunity to take electives. Those electives will be at the beginning of this period or at the end of this period. And again, those electives will be chosen by the students. When I say electives, art, music, bio-ed, world language, family consumer ed, tech ed are all opportunities that students will have. I'm going to take a pause right there and allow you to write in the chat box if you haven't done so already, if you have some questions. If not, just hold tight and I will be back in another 45 to 50 seconds and continue with our social emotional wellness and then talk a little bit about some practices and wellness that we have in place. Okay, thank you. One of the things that we absolutely know is that being away from each other is a task on social emotional. And we want to make sure that we're continuing to look at the mental-based health services with our community partners and with our own internal supports. We have ongoing planning support, those students' social emotional health. We have guidance offered. We have our mental health community partners that are in our buildings. We have a mental health wellness coordinator to help support these plans and resources to provide emotional, social health and learning for our teachers and professionals. We do know that we also need to support our staff. This is obviously different. We haven't ever planned on going back to school in a model during a potential pandemic, so we want to make sure that we're taking care of our staff, and we have an EAP, like many employers do, to support staff. The next sections that I want to talk a little bit about safety practices and protocols. The first thing we're going to talk a little bit about is physical spaces. So when we do return, whether that's in a blended model or in the future when we're returning face-to-face, we have physical barriers in place. We have plexiglass barriers, very similar to what you've seen in many of the retail places for our frontline office workers. We have floor decals that we'll have prepared, providing social distancing in public and high traffic areas. We've got a number of signs that you'll see, talks a little bit about the hand hygiene, our social distancing, what symptoms are by the CDC. We've ordered 400 hand sanitizing stations. Those would be for the portable hand sanitizers. Those will be either in the hallways or near or between classrooms. We want to make sure that we're creating space in classrooms for social distancing and other common areas. And we also have what we call an isolation room for students with COVID symptoms. And what that means is that we just want to make sure that we have a place that we can separate a student who might be coming down with a skin knee or a loose tooth or something to that realm from somebody who's coming down with a temperature and symptoms that might indicate COVID-19. For our healthy environment, we have the ability to increase and will take that look at our building ventilation and the air exchange. That's on a digital forecast marketing model that allows our buildings to increase the outside air, and we'll do that as appropriate. We currently follow all the state guidelines and those. We've been doing that all along. We've enhanced our protocols for cleaning and disinfecting in the classroom and common places. Just to kind of give you some backgrounds, we've always cleaned our classrooms. We haven't always disinfected our classrooms. And so the new change that we're going to have to do is, as we're disinfecting classrooms, especially when we have students who potentially will go for less than a full day, those high touch areas need to be touched twice as opposed to just once. So we've prepared to add some custodial support to hire. As a result of COVID-19, we're ready and able to meet the needs that are occurring because of COVID-19. We are going to continue to reinforce the regimen of regular hand hygiene. We know that washing of our hands with soap and water is an excellent deterrent. We want to continue to provide that option for our students and staff. We're going to adjust the student traffic, so you're not going to see mass students leaving or going at the same time between classes. We'll adjust that. We'll ask our kids to stay in their cohorts, and we'll move the adults as opposed to kids. The day-to-day operations, Staff and students will be required to wear masks with some exceptions for medical and other conditions. In the blended model, we do know that wearing a mask is absolutely critical to reducing the spread. Our medical providers recommend that we do that. We will provide all students with at least 2 cloth masks. We're working through the details on what that looks like in terms of how we help support students to bring them back to school or how we help clean them. We do know that in some cases our youngest children will have a harder time keeping a mask on, but we do know that that's the best case. We'll do some practical teaching. And 15 years ago we didn't have cell phones, and now students all have electronic personal devices. We've taught students on what the appropriate use will be. We can continue to do the same thing. We likely will have some opportunities for some learning and teaching, but we do want to make sure that that is one of 5 very significant things that we can do. Obviously, social distance is one of them. Wearing a mask is another one. Washing your hands with soap and water is another one. Washing your hands with some kind of a hand sanitizer is another one. Those are 4 things that we can do, and we know we can continue to provide to help support the health of our students. We will take the temperatures of students prior to the start of the school day, and again, that will help us create a screening mechanism. We've ordered the supplies necessary to do that whenever we do come back to school. We've got a staff screening protocol that staff need to complete, and again, we're telling everybody to remain home, whether that's students or staff, if in fact they're symptomatic. We have a plan to provide some social distancing on our buses. We will welcome families who want to bring their kids to school as opposed to taking the bus if you're eligible. We do know that we will ask kids to wear masks on the bus. We're going to wipe down the buses, but those are pieces that we'll move forward, and we'll share with those families who potentially would take the bus some of the specific details that we can do to help reduce the spread while they're on the bus. Be very limited public entrances, and again, we're limiting the student movement throughout the building, and that's a big piece for us as well. When we continue to talk about those day-to-day operations, the meals would be delivered and eaten in a classroom in individual packaging, either at the beginning or the end of the day. Obviously, we're going to try to restrict visitors. In some cases, we'll have some outside folks who will come in because maybe HVAC is not working right. We need a vendor to come in to help us with that. Those individuals will be masked and they'll be screened. With parents, we'll ask you to stay in the common areas and not come into the building. We will avoid sharing objects in classrooms and common spaces as much as possible. We're obviously not going to go on field trips if we're restricted, and we're going to try to regularly provide some systematic communication to all of you and individually from your school. One of the things that we're really trying to do as we look at our current return to school model is align our model with what we're looking at from the state and county health department. So right now, as I articulated earlier, our activity level is high. In June, our activity level wasn't high, and so we need to keep taking a look at that as a data point, also the availability of beds with a data point, also our ability to contact trace, and our ability to quarantine. Those are really important pieces, because what I want to be able to do is articulate to all of you and our staff that our goal is to return to school full time. And I want to provide some hope that if we take care of ourselves and we improve our community's health, here are the targets that we're looking for, whether that's we're moving from high to medium, or we're moving from a regular model to a low model. We want to make sure that we're articulating what that looks like. So those are the 2 pieces of data points. Like I said, I had a great meeting this morning with our county health professionals. We're waiting for the state to help us with one other piece that I think will be supportive, and then we can link, along with other community groups, can link to those as we reconnect. We've got a meeting scheduled to reconnect with the work group, the people who originally made some of these plans for returning to school. That includes administrators, our nurses and healthcare professionals, myself. We're all looking at trying to create a model that supports student learning. We've got a Board of Education presentation and feedback on Tuesday. And then again, we're going to continue to monitor health results in August and make any adjustments if necessary. We know that it's possible that if our trajectory continues to go in a certain way, that we have to make changes. We know the county health department, the state has the ability to make rules for schools that we need to follow, and we're prepared to do that. But we're in close communication, so I do not believe that there's going to be anything coming down from the county that we haven't already shared in terms of requirements and regulations. So that's the end of my presentation. I will take a pause. Again, I know that a virtual presentation is not the ideal way to communicate, and we are anxious to be able to get back in a face-to-face model. We too can do our part in trying to help support the health of our greater community, and I encourage you to do everything you can, following those, obviously, covering yourself, washing your hands, using hand sanitizers, and trying to socially distance as much as you can. Again, your opportunity for feedback is here. We'll take that of another presentation tonight at 6 o'clock for interested parents, and then we'll take all that data, take a look at it, and create a question and answer response in the very near future. We'll post that on our website. Again, I very much thank you so much for taking your time today. Little more than a half an hour, 40 minutes. I know it's important. I know it's vital to what's happening for you and your students when we come back to school. And again, I very much appreciate your time and attention. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. We will leave this open for how about another 3 or 4 minutes and allow you to continue to put information in there. With that, thank you again. Be well, and I will see you around.